UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are now often referred to as UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. The new name sucks. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On my weekly podcast, topics, discussions, stories from our lives.
Season 9, Chapter 12.
UFOs and UAPs.
UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. Lately, I've also heard unexplained aerial phenomena, unidentified aerial phenomena, and of course the one they seem to have settled on, unidentified anomalous phenomena. All are a poor substitute for the term UFO. We've used the term UFO for decades. It's part of our vernacular. It immediately conjures up images. It's descriptive, accurate, and non-offensive. And what I mean by that is sometimes we update our language because we find out a term we've been using is offensive to a group of people. Master bedroom. Turns out it was a reference to the slave master's bedroom, so now we just say primary bedroom, main bedroom. Gatekeeper, from POW in concentration camps in the war. Ooh, don't call me a gatekeeper anymore. You know, I was in my 30s when I found out that welching on a bet was actually a slur against Welsh people. Getting gypped was a slag on gypsies. We change our language. And I don't mind doing that. It's the least I can do. But UFO, why does that need changing to UAP? UAP, I mean, maybe I could get used to it, but why? You know, if we had always called them UAPs, 30 years ago, David Grohl would have had to call his band Ape Fighters. Here is a bit of trivia that I'm sure most people already know, but I'll drop it in anyway, because it leads well into why I chose this topic in the first place. David Grohl's band, the Foo Fighters, named after a term from history. The term Foo Fighters goes all the way back to World War II and beyond. The term Foo was first used as a nonsense word in the 1930s in a prominent Chicago cartoon strip called Smokey Stover. The character Smokey Stover was a firefighter and always had expressions like, where there's foo, there's fire. Fast forward to World War II, and the U.S. 415th Night Fighter Squadron, whose main dispatcher was from Chicago. His pilots would report unidentified flying objects while on their missions. Unidentified is not ours and not theirs. This dispatcher from Chicago started calling them Foo Fighters. It was a play on UFO, and he was a big fan of that cartoon strip Smokey Stover. If you could not identify or explain what you saw, you called the aircraft a Foo Fighter. Hey man, you saw a Foo Fighter. Quickly, it became the term almost everyone in the military used for any unexplained aerial phenomena over Europe or the Pacific. The term caught on with the general public, and it stuck. For the last decade or so, a number of military higher-ups, journalists, and politicians have been trying to swing the term UFO over to UAP. I mentioned that UFOs is not offensive. Well, you see, they don't agree. They think it has become offensive, at least in a pejorative sense. The term now has a connotation of crazy. Oh, you're seeing things in the sky. Hey, you're not one of those people that believes in that stuff, are you? Literally, a UFO is just that, unidentified flying object. It doesn't mean flying saucer or alien invasion. It just means it was an object and it was, it was flying, and I don't know what it was. I guess the big brass thought, if we call it something else, unidentified or unexplained, anomalous aerial phenomena, that'll be a little more palatable. I suppose, but wasn't it Shakespeare who said that a rose by any other name, when it walks like a duck and swims like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck? Unquote. Shakespeare. So here's the thing, UFOs or UAPs, or whatever we're going to call them, firstly, of all the other worldly, strange things people choose to believe in, this is the most plausible. It is much more scientifically believable to think that another race of interplanetary being not only exists, but has developed the technology to zip around the galaxy in super turbocharged vessels. I think that's much easier to believe than, say the world was created by one magic sky man whose prophet may return to Earth one day to wave his I told you so finger at us during the rapture. It's easier to believe in other intelligent life in the universe than it is to believe in an entire netherworld of ghosts and evil spirits. Well, okay, they're not all evil, just most of them, I guess, who physically die on this planet but still have a soul that is trapped in some hellish twilight zone. I'm not saying none of these other things exist. I'm just saying that I wouldn't put them in the same category as space aliens piloting spaceships that we call UFOs. That's the first thing. And secondly, too many people have seen them. And it's difficult for us to believe that there isn't some military record of it all. Remember, UFOs and Foo Fighters really came into the popular culture through the military. The Army Air Corps, and eventually the Air Force. And now, of course, we have Space Force. Remember that Space Force, the 6th branch of the U.S. military, was already a division within the Air Force. And it's not there to explore space. That's NASA. This is a group designed to have a military presence in space, in case we need one. Against other earthly threats, yes, but also when Mars attacks. Ergo, the Pentagon must have UFO files. They have to. Which brings me to the inspiration for this week's topic. Recently, a group of whistleblowers that included a former intelligence officer have come forth to tell the U.S. Congress that we are all being kept in the dark by the Pentagon when it comes to UAPs. In America, oh, what a country, like they have nothing else to worry about, the U.S. Congress held a House Oversight Subcommittee hearing on national security, at which they heard testimony by former military about sightings. Anomalous though they may be, try 366 sightings since 2021 alone. We're aware occasionally this Air Force footage shows up on the nightly news.
It's rotating. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. Look at that thing, dude.
Unidentified object on military radar boogieing along at a gazillion miles an hour. No one can figure out what it is. And these are military types in the sky. You know, your Maverick, your Iceman, your Goose. And they have no idea. And no disrespect, but you know, this isn't some guy at 3 a.m. in the middle of a dirt road who just did shrooms and swears he saw a high-speed aluminum dish whiz by his head. More and more, these sightings have credibility. No pejorative UFO. These are military-confirmed UAPs. And why a subcommittee on national security? Well, if we don't know who or what they are, how do we know they're not a threat? Quick U.S. government lesson here. The United States has 3 branches of government: legislative, judicial, and the executive. The legislative, the elected ones, you know, they do all their business and they make the laws. And so can the executive, but they can only do so much without the legislative, and the judicial keeps tabs on them all, sometimes when called upon to do so, and more lately, all on their own. I've always maintained that really in America there's a 4th branch of government, and that's the military. Though they are funded and overseen by the legislative and the executive, and subject, like everyone else, to judicial, I say they operate like a separate branch of government, veiling themselves under such protections as top secret, national security, guarding and maintaining American assets domestically and abroad. If that's not its own branch of government, then what is? I bring this up because the legislative, in this case Congress, always feel they need to know more about everything, especially military. So now we have military whistleblowers come forward and say that Congress is being kept in the dark about these anomalous flying objects. That plays right into Congress's underlying belief that we need to be more informed about everything. And it plays right into our hand, too, because for years we've believed, or at least acknowledged the possibility, that there was an Area 51, a Roswell alien autopsy, these quantum leaps in technology that could only be explained by our theft of superior space technology. Well, there's a lot to build a case on, for sure. Some sort of U.S. military knowledge about UFOs and space travel not shared with the general public. But if it's not shared with other branches of their own government, well, You know, Barack Obama on talk shows, Kimmel and Corden, has talked about what the President of the United States knows about all of this.
When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air. Truth is that when I came into office, I asked, right? I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where we're keeping the alien specimens in spaceship? They did a little bit of research, and the answer was no.
It's always left us wondering. Most recently, some of our suspicions were confirmed. Not so much that there's military knowledge of aliens among us, but that yes, military does have extensive files of, at the very least, the sightings. But these files, how much are they studied or compared or coordinated, is unknown. These men, these whistleblowers, testified under oath to this subcommittee. They are all former military and F-18 pilots with stories of their own. Ryan Graves.
As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Parts of our government are aware of more about UAP than they let on, but excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden. Since 2021, all UAP videos are classified as secret or above. This level of secrecy not only impedes our understanding, but fuels speculation and mistrust.
This is David Grush.
At the time, due to my extensive executive-level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. But I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency.
The third whistleblower who recently spoke to this subcommittee is David Fravor.
It has led to an interest from our elected officials who are not focused on little green men, but figuring out where these craft are, where are they from, the technology they possess, how do they operate. It also led to the Whistleblower Protection Act and the NDAA. There are multiple witnesses coming forward to say that have firsthand knowledge, and Mr. Grush just covered that. What concerns me is that there's no oversight from our elected officials on anything associated with our government processing or working on craft. Believe not from this world.
What do we know? Well, we know we have sightings, UFOs, UAPs, not only military but commercial pilots and their crews who have these unexplainable observations on an almost daily basis. I think we can conclude that these are real and that, pardon the expression, something is out there. We can say that records of these events, be they reports, radar, other detection devices, were made. And I think we can safely assume that these reports still exist. That is to say, they weren't destroyed, but is anyone looking at them? As I said, studying them, comparing them to each other, determining possible sources and outcomes. It is hard to believe that someone isn't doing this. And we ask, why the secrecy? As Ryan Graves said,
If UAP are foreign drones, it is an urgent national security problem. If it is something else, it is an issue for science.
if the military has UAP files, and they label it top secret or NTK, need to know basis, I can kind of see that too. There are 435 congressmen and women. If Congress demands and somehow gets all the UAP files, well, then suddenly they know. Their assistants know, and their assistants know, and spouses and confidants, and suddenly 2,000-3,000 more people know about all of these files. Perhaps all of them swore themselves to secrecy, but they do know, and there's much more chance of a leak. I know that all the branches are part of a system of checks and balances on each other, but sometimes it's NTK, need to know. Do you need to know? Or would you just like to know? Hey, we'd all like to know. I was just watching a segment of the decision process in the making and dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima in 1945. This wasn't the Oppenheimer movie, but it was those same events. So in the day, Russia was an ally, and it was decided that even though the war in Europe was over, Russia would not be privy to the information about the A-bomb. The U.S. had a distinct, extremely advantageous weapon. But even their experts told President Truman this advantage would not last forever. Here's my point. Here we are, almost 80 years on, and when it comes to powerful governments, I believe that everyone knows pretty much what everyone else has and what they're scientifically capable of. There might be some secrets, but no big secrets. Therefore, when we see these incredible UFOs, if we think of them as drones from other earthly foreign governments, it just doesn't seem to make sense. I have no idea what they are, but they aren't Russian or Chinese drones. I'd be willing to wager on that. It's not a big leap to go from speedy UFO sightings to the question, is there other intelligent life in the universe? Or a neighboring universe, for that matter. When you take our best science to explain how a few sticky little life cells somehow adhesed and developed over a few billion years into planet Earth and humanity, it is both believable and unbelievable that it didn't happen similarly somewhere else. Do you know what I mean by that? I mean, if it's so remarkable that people and Earth came to be, maybe it actually could be a one-off. Then again, we often use this phrase, life as we know it. As we know it. It's possible that life and intelligence as we know it exists in forms we think to be impossible. The other thing we often do, I think it's a mistake when we conjecture, especially about UFOs and UAPs, is that these craft are from some superior culture. Well, yeah, I guess they're pretty smart if it's them. They know how to fly these amazing machines. We can't do it. But who knows? Maybe back home, that's the one thing they're good at. Maybe they figured out high-speed interplanetary travel. But meanwhile, back at home, they still have black and white TV and only, 3 flavors of ice cream. ETs are flying high speed to other galaxies. But if they get home safely, their reward is a bowl of Neapolitan with a crispy wafer biscuit on the side. And if they're so intelligent, how could they let themselves be seen by us? Mind you, even in a Star Trek future, not everyone had the cloaking technology. The Romulans and the Klingons. Anyway, so I guess we know it's neither of them, right? They would be scooting around invisibly. I am kidding, but this too is a part of the problem. Life on other planets, super intelligent space aliens, flying saucers, these have all been a big part of our pop culture, the arts, and lore. So much so that we feel we kind of already know about all of this. We just want some proof. The other assumption that we always make that perhaps is false, that these UFO sightings somehow represent an entire other culture's investigation into ours. That this is their government and or military checking us out. We don't know that. Maybe back where they are from, this high-speed intergalactic travel is like a, Toyota. Almost everyone has one, except the rich aliens. They have the nicer version called the Lexus. Maybe all of these sightings are just bad drivers, fast and furious kids. Maybe people out with their families and their GPS directed them to the Milky Way by mistake. And all of this may not be new. Some archaeologists who study ancient civilizations and early historical records have speculated that space people have already been here many years ago and many times. They speculate that interplanetary visitors may help explain some of the achievements and strange beliefs of the past. And it's only since humans evolved into the sky with better observation devices that we can even begin to think beyond Earth. Yeah, I guess. In ancient times, the smartest guy in town was probably the guy with 2 chickens and a goat. And if he saw something that was unexplainable, he wouldn't say, "Hey, are you from space?" They didn't know of space. Point is that the so-called UAPs could have already been happening for millennia, but we've only started to take notice in the last half century or so. Maybe it is time to start taking this a little more seriously. Start talking about it like the intelligent beings we think we've become. Frank, open discussions about what these things are. And the stigma. If contact could become possible, wouldn't that just be the most amazing thing of our existence? And, if it turns out to be not much of anything, at least then we know. I just want to know.
If UAP are foreign drones, it is an urgent national security problem. If it is something else, it is an issue for science.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.